Okay, yes, thank you, everyone. So today we're going to continue with REDCap's randomization enhancements. In today's demo, we're going to be looking at an automated blinded study with an assigned randomization number using a text field. So one of the things that I really want to emphasize on is that when you decide that you're going to make a blinded, randomized study, keep that into consideration when you start building your project and how you're building it and what it entails. So for instance, this interest survey, I've identified the fact if they were consenting. Now, if they say no, I have set it up in the survey settings down here in auto continue that if they don't say consent, then they're going to automatically be kicked out of the study. The same will be for I have an eligibility, and if they do not answer specific eligibility questions correctly, they will also be kicked out of the study using the survey settings. Because again, it's a blinded study. No one can go in and change anything. Can't go back and change your answers. So this automatically kicks them out or takes them out of the study. I should use that word. This is a very basic project that we're going to be using. I'm going to go into our project setup. And I'm going to enable our randomization module. And again, notice that this area will open up. So now we're going to set up our randomization. And this is the new view with the new enhancements and what it looks like. So I'm going to add a new randomization model. Now in our previous demo, we went through showing how you stratify. And this is basically going to be the same. So you're going to choose the specific fields that you want to strata on. I want to strata on my consent and on my eligibility, on both my eligibility questions. Now I also have a location, so I want to randomize by site. We showed on our last demo how we could randomize by DAGs, but we needed to have our DAGs set up. But using our site, I have a location. And today's study again is going to be for a concealed blinded randomization. Now, these areas were discussed in our previous session of how to set up a basic randomized model. Previously, we used a single select, and that, if you're familiar with randomization, is a drop down. When you use a blinded allocation, you must have a text field, and it cannot be validated. So I'm using the new smart variable, which is rand number. And now I'm going to save my randomization model. Now this is ready. Now notice it says this allocation will be concealed. It's blinded. And a randomization number is assigned to this text field. Remember that REDCap provides us with templates. so we can download an example of what they suggest. Let me see if sorry, that's a little small. Whoops. Can you see that? Is everybody able to see that now?
Looks
Yes.
good.
Yes.
Now, notice REDCap has because this is a blinded study, REDCap has automatically created the randomization number. Your randomization group is optional, but it does include the 4 questions that I'm asking. So now I'm going to choose my file. We're going to, because this is in development. Remember, you need to create 2 different allocation tables. One for your development and one for your production. Your production allocation table must be different from your development. More than likely, your development table will have less record count than your actual production status. So I'm going to upload this file. It's been successful. And notice after I uploaded that file, step 4 has opened up for us. We covered manual and trigger logic for randomized permissions only in our last session. Today, we're going to look at trigger logic for all users, including survey respondents. The particular instrument that I want this triggered off of is my eligibility instrument. And then I'm also going to need to provide a specific logic. This logic is going to include they must provide a location and they must provide proper response or a yes response for their eligibility, and the eligibility survey must be completed and submitted. I'm going to update. I'm going to save. Now, when we scroll to the top, notice now we have 3 tabs. You have your summary. We have our setup, which now opens the setup. And now we have our dashboard. And what actually are we allocating at this point in time? So it shows I have 20 records total. 10 are going to be randomized to location 1, and 10 are going to be randomized to location 2. I'd like to, let's see if I can get a chat. I want to provide you folks with some this is a really nice user rights that, oh, not this one. Carol has created for us. It's simplified, but it's very detailed as far as the user rights, because you want to be very aware of your user rights when setting up a blind study. I'm hoping everybody will be able to grab that PDF for future reference if you're interested.
Where are you putting the PDF?
I put it in the chat. Did it go?
No. There it is. There it is. Okay. Just slow, maybe.
Oh,
I
thank
just
you.
wanted to make sure you got it in there. All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. So with that, I really want everyone to kind of take the time to go in first in your project setup. When you're in your randomization model in your setup, please take the time to open up and read what REDCap has provided us. They've given us some very detailed information. They do recommend that only people with experience in randomization set up the randomized module. This strongly suggesting that you not have a novice do this, someone who's just coming in and say, okay, set us up a randomized table. You really want someone who has experience with REDCap and who also has a little bit of experience with the randomization. Consult your statistician. With that, so now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to look at our user rights. So notice I have created roles. We have a data entry person, we have a data manager, we have our PI, and our statistician. And I really want to give a shout out to the service team because they have really provided me with a lot of support and backup as far as being able to present this. So I do thank you. So looking at your coordinators or your data staff. And again, really acknowledging the fact that you're setting this up in the very beginning as a blinded study. They will only have randomized rights. They will not have setup rights or dashboard rights. They usually do not even have file repository rights. And the majority of the time, data entry people can only create records, not rename or delete. Notice over here in our data viewing rights, I've placed the specific surveys that we're putting out there that's being randomized, but these are read-only, so they cannot be altered. They do not have export rights. Our data manager, your data managers usually have full rights. I've provided this data manager with setup, dashboard, and randomized rights. They also have file repository rights. They have total viewing rights and edit rights, and they have total data export rights. Now our PI, we have provided a read-only environment as far as the high level of privileges. They have the basic privileges, but they do not have any randomization. They do have access to the file repository. And most PIs can create records. They don't really rename or delete. Again, this is according to how your specific project is set up and what your IRB and what your PI is requesting. They do have data, full view and edit and full data export. Now we have our statistician. And if I remember correctly, I was told that I could say stat. So it rolls off my tongue a little bit better. So my stats person, they do have access to reports, charts. They have access to the file repository. They do not have access to the setup, but they do have access to the dashboard and to randomize. The majority of the time, a stats person does not have anything to do with the creation of records. They have a read-only environment, except for the randomized instrument, and they are able to export all data. So now with that, we're going to go ahead, and these are all set up. Go back into Designer. These are all set up as surveys. The link is going to go out, and folks are going to come in and see if they're interested and eligible for the survey. Survey distribution, we're going to open. I'm going to use the autofill, which is an admin tool. You folks don't have this. Notice we have, they have consented. So I'm going to submit. Now we're going into the eligibility survey. And I'm going to change these because I want you to be able to see that they must respond yes. And we're going to submit. Now this is an auto continue into the demographics form. When we go back over here though, in the server and in your actual project, you'll notice that you have received the interest survey, the eligibility, and it has been randomized. The participant does not know that it's been randomized. No one knows what this number is except the statistician. Go back over here. We're going to complete this one. We're going to submit. Do a refresh. And now, as you can see, let me go back up here to the dashboard. But their survey has come in. And the randomized is showing as an incomplete. Your data person, your data entry person, can now look at this. They can come over here and click on the instrument. They cannot change this randomization number. They have no access. I created an actual randomized date field that is, it is a read-only environment, so we can collect that data in a report. I'm going to mark it as complete. I'm going to save and stay. And now record number 1 has completed the first event of their instruments. Now let's say we have a person who's but they decide they don't want to. They don't want to consent. So in the survey settings, notice it just places them right out of the study. Going back to your dashboard, and this is what you see. So now you can do an actual count of those who were interested but didn't consent. Do another one. And this one we're going to say, yes, we consented. We're going to submit. But I'm answering no on one of my eligibility. And again, it's going to take me out of the study because I'm not eligible. Go back to our dashboard, do a refresh. And now your folks internally, your users, can actually see what's going on according to each participant who has taken this particular survey or who has entered this survey. So you have record number 1, they've completed it. Record number 2, they didn't consent. Record number 3 consented, but they didn't pass the eligibility. And remember, with a completed survey response, because they completed it online and submitted it, you're going to receive the icon with the check mark in it, because it was actually completed. Let's go into detail as far as what this looks like now when we go into our randomization model. Here's your summary. We're using the rand number. This is the specific logic that has been identified for this automated trigger. We have what we're actually stratifying on, our consent, our 2 eligibility questions, and our location. We have 20 records, or 20 people can participate at this time. You can open up your setup. Let me come over here and we'll look at it as a data manager. So the data manager has access to setup and dashboard. So if they needed to review their setup for some reason, they have access to that. They want to look at their dashboard. What the dashboard does, it provides an allocation. So it shows that we've used one record out of our 10, and we've allocated that to record number 1, and they've answered the specific questions correctly. We still have 10 records open for our second location. Just want to spend the time and open this up for each user's environment. So notice that your data entry person does not have access. Also notice what's over here on their side menu. They do not have access to it just went brain dead, sorry. The file repository, but they can randomize. So let's get back over here to their dashboard. This is all that they have access to. Your PI will have access to the file repository, and they also have access to be able to open the randomization. But notice nothing can be changed here. They can look. Well, let's come up here to our statistician. Now your statistician, because they're the ones who are really going to, or someone in that skill set will be the one who creates your allocation table in a true blinded study. And they will have access to the randomization model, and they have access to the dashboard. And they're able to see who has actually been randomized. And why am I emphasizing the file repository? Go back over here and look at the file repository under our statistician. Notice in their file repository, they have this folder randomization, and it is role restricted. So only they are the ones who can see this. Open it up and they can actually see the table that was used for the development stage and what was put in. Now, they identified, this demonstration shows where a group was identified. So in addition to these other criteria, now we also have a group. Back up over here. Let's look at our data manager. Now, our data manager has access to the file repository, but no access to that randomization file. So again, just take into consideration how you're going to set it up, who's going to be looking at it, and what actual user rights you're going to be presenting. I do feel that REDCap has provided, even though this is a very, it is a very complex randomization environment, but REDCap has made it very nice and easy for us to set this up. REDCap also had, in addition to being able to provide us a blinded automated study, they've also provided us with some smart variables. Now in the randomized form, I actually used the rand number smart variable as the field name. They're telling us too that we can pipe that rand number in. In addition, they've provided us with two other smart variables relating to time. One is your actual server time, and one is your UTC time. This is not seen on the survey, but if we go to our dashboard, when we open it up, we're able to see the actual time, and this is just a pipe. When I created this as an example, I did create it as a text. I did use a placeholder using the rand time, and notice it does fill it. And you can place it in the field label, in the middle. This one is a descriptive field, and again, just the pipe text. Personally, because you can't really pull a report on anything piped, I create a randomized date and time. So now if I go and I pull my report, I can actually get the date and time that that particular record was randomized and to what number it was randomized to. So once again, let's come back out. Stop viewing. Do. We've consented and we've selected the correct response for eligibility, and we've taken right into the demographics. We're going to submit, close. And notice record number 4 has come through, but the randomization is still showing as incomplete. And this is where your data entry people will come in, open it up, verify it's been done. They cannot change anything, but they can mark it as complete and do a save and stay. And now record number 1 and record number 4 are complete. They have been randomized and they are completed. I wanted to share a little bit with the randomization table, going back to the file repository and opening this up and how this is being presented. So this was our development stage. Notice that the randomization number is required, but Red Cat provides those numbers for us. The group is optional, and we can actually see the values for what we're requiring within the stratifying within our randomization table, or the allocation table, excuse me. Too many big words for me today. I don't know if you folks are aware of how to create a record or a file in your file repository. So we're going to do that. So I'm going to create a file. And now I'm going to limit it to a specific user. And I'm going to create that folder. Now, again, only that specific user or role will be able to actually see or be able to get into that file and drop information in there. So say they wanted to put sorry, I've got pictures here. So now we're just gonna do a see if I can get this over here. Nope. And of course, there we go. So now that the production, we have again in a restricted folder that no one else will be able to see except for that assigned user.
Carol, do you think at some point they'll be able to assign records to those or no?
I'm not understanding your question.
So do you think at some point we'll be able to assign, essentially patients or whoever's listed charts to specific folders or specific files instead of it just being a repository for all? Like right now I can attach a file to a particular REDCap ID, but I have to upload it within that specific one. Whereas if I have a shared file that reflects information about multiple REDCap IDs, there's not really a spot to put that in.
Jen,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer your question.
Okay, that's okay.
The only thing I would maybe think as specific files again, where you can create an actual file and that those specific users have access to that and only those users, would that be?
That's okay.
Okay. But as far as actually assigning specific records from your database to your file repository, is that what you're?
Yes.
I don't think so. Because you're actually going to have to upload a file. So if you had, say, an Excel file or something and of specific participants or specific records, then you could create a file folder that was for those, say, 1 through 10 and 11 through 12, or for that specific coordinator or CHW, but they would need to have access to the file repository and access to their folder.
So you're saying you can give permissions on specific folders within the file repository?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
I think only 2 roles.
But there's a way, I think that Jen has multiple issues with being able to put certain records in certain folders, and it might be that having certain permissions on a folder would be a component of making that solution.
let's
Okay.
do that. And let's come back up here to all files. I'm going to delete that one. Okay, so we could create a folder for specific participants. But again, you would have to have a CVS or an Excel PDF. And maybe you have CHWs or your coordinators, right? And then from there, you could, any of the roles, have them placed in specific roles. And then you can assign them that way. Is that helpful?
I think that's one element. I think the other element I was hoping to do was to be able to kind of group together records and be able to make it a search function. You know, if a particular document was associated with 5 records, I would be able to um, either, you know, when I pull up that record, be able to say that it's associated with that particular document versus uploading that document into um, each record individually. But it's just the way I'm trying to use it. So I think it's different than probably most. So that's okay.
Yeah, I
Sorry
don't,
about that.
no, that's okay. It's a good question, and I don't think we have a way of doing that, at least not at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That makes my brain go into a completely different area here. So let's go back to our randomization module. And again, take and review, take a look at what the dashboard says. So now we know that we have allocated records 1 and 4 that have been from location 1. And we're still looking out for location for our Phoenix location. So that's really it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, I'll try very, very hard to answer them.
So all the examples that she's given right now have been in development mode. You never want to actually randomize anybody in development mode for real.
We'll continue. Thank you. Thank you very much, Carol. So let's go back into that. We're going to go to our setup. And now we're ready to push this into production. But again, as it's been noted, we have records here that are in the development mode. We do not want these records. These are test records, maybe your pilot, but you do not want to be pulling anything, any records that are already in the database into once you've placed it into production. So let's go ahead and push this into production. I'm going to choose my file. Remember, your production file, your production table, allocation table must be different from the development table. And usually it's just a matter of adding more records to it. I'm going to upload the file. So now this is ready for production. Again, it's showing you that it's concealed, it's blinded. Everything else stays the same. Once you have pushed, or once you have placed your project into production mode, you cannot put it back into development. So I'm going to come over here. It's at the very bottom of the page, and we're going to say move project to production. I am not keeping these 4 records. I'm going to delete all the data, and I'm going to say yes, move to production status. We're going to say okay. So now our project is in production status. We have no records, and we're ready to set this link out and start collecting data from our public or your audience. I'm going to say consent. I'm going to make sure that they've passed their eligibility. It's taking them right into their demographics. Again, notice got it confused. That it's already been randomized. I'm going to submit. I'm going to close our survey. I have too many open. So now this is where your data person or anybody who has access to the randomized instrument can now go in and complete and save and stay. When you go to our, open up our module, and we're able to go to our dashboard and see who's been allocated and to what location. Now, again, only the person who has access to that original allocation table knows what that record, excuse me, only they know what number 21 is assigned to, whether it's group A or group B. And folks, that's about all I have for this demonstration. Does anyone have any questions?